At 4:18 a.m., the building should have been asleep. Even in a city like New York, where sirens and neon lights never quite fade, there was a strange stillness in the early hours before dawn. The kind of quiet that feels unnatural, like the world is holding its breath. Daniel Reyes noticed it the moment he stepped into the lobby. The security guard wasn't at his desk. That alone was odd. Mr. Klein had worked nights for over 15 years and never once left his post, not even for coffee. He used to joke that the chair had molded to his body. Daniel glanced at the empty chair, then at the glowing security monitors behind it. All the camera feeds were still active: hallways, parking garage, rooftop. Everything looked normal. Too normal. "Hello," Daniel called out, his voice echoing faintly across the marble floor. No response. He hesitated, then shrugged it off. Maybe Klein had gone to the restroom. Maybe Daniel was just more on edge than usual. He had been working late all week, after all. He adjusted his bag on his shoulder and walked toward the elevators. There were 3 of them, sleek, stainless steel doors reflecting the dim overhead lights. Only one was active at this hour. The others were dark, their call buttons unlit. Daniel pressed the button. A soft ding echoed almost immediately. That was fast. The elevator doors slid open. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered once, brief, almost unnoticeable, before stabilizing. Daniel stepped in. "Floor 27, he muttered, pressing the button. The doors closed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the elevator jolted. Hard. Daniel grabbed the railing. Whoa. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Then the elevator began to move. Down. "That's not right," Daniel said, frowning. He lived on the 27th floor. The lobby was ground level. There was nowhere lower to go except the parking garage, and that was only 2 levels down. He looked at the panel. The numbers were descending. G, B1, B2. Then, B3. Daniel blinked. There is no B3. The elevator didn't stop. B4. Okay. This isn't funny, he muttered, pressing the emergency stop button. Nothing happened. He hit it again. Still nothing. The lights dimmed, then returned with a faint buzzing sound. The numbers kept dropping. B5. B6. His chest tightened. "This has to be a glitch," he whispered. Just a glitch. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The air inside the elevator felt heavier, thicker, like breathing through invisible water. He pulled out his phone. No signal. Of course. He tried calling anyway. No service. Great. The elevator suddenly jerked to a stop. Daniel stumbled forward, catching himself against the wall. The lights flickered violently, then steadied. The panel displayed B7. Silence. Then, ding. The doors slid open. Daniel didn't move. A cold draft seeped into the elevator. It smelled wrong, like damp concrete, and something else. Something metallic. He slowly leaned forward, peering out. Darkness. Not just the absence of light, but a thick, suffocating darkness that seemed to swallow everything beyond the threshold. There should have been a parking level. Concrete walls. Fluorescent lights. Rows of cars. Instead, nothing. Just black. Daniel swallowed hard. "Hello," he called out. His voice didn't echo. It just disappeared. That was enough. He slammed the close door button. The doors didn't move. Come on. He pressed it repeatedly. Still nothing. Then, a sound. From the darkness. A faint scraping, like something dragging across the floor. Daniel froze. "Hello," he called again, his voice trembling now. The scraping stopped. Silence. Then, a whisper, so soft he almost didn't hear it. "Help." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Who's there?" he asked. No answer. Just the sound again. Closer this time. Scrape. Drag. Scrape. Something was moving toward the elevator. Daniel stepped back, pressing himself against the far wall. "Nope. He muttered. "Doors. Close. The lights flickered again, this time more violently. For a split second, the darkness outside shifted, and Daniel saw it, a shape, low to the ground, wrong, too long, too thin, its limbs bent at angles they shouldn't, and its head tilted sideways, as if it were trying to understand him. Then the lights snapped back to normal. The darkness returned. The shape was gone. Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. "I didn't see that," he whispered. "I didn't see that." The scraping sound stopped again. Silence filled the elevator. Seconds passed. Then, a hand appeared, slowly, from the darkness. It gripped the edge of the elevator door. Daniel gasped. The hand was pale, too pale. The fingers were long, and thin, and bent slightly backward. Like they had been broken, and healed wrong. Another hand appeared. Then, a face. It emerged slowly, inch by inch, from the darkness. The skin was stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were too wide, too empty, and its mouth, it smiled. "Help!" it whispered again. Daniel screamed. He lunged for the panel, hitting every button at once. "Go! Go!" The lights exploded into a strobe of flickering brightness. The creature jerked forward. Then, the doors slammed shut. The elevator jolted violently, and began to rise. Daniel collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" The numbers climbed rapidly. B6, B5, B4, B3. He squeezed his eyes shut. Not real, not real, not real. The elevator slowed. B2, B1, G, ding. The doors opened. The lobby, normal, bright, empty. Daniel didn't move for a moment. Then he scrambled to his feet and stumbled out of the elevator. The air felt normal again. Light, real. He turned back slowly. The elevator stood open behind him. Still, silent, as if nothing had happened. Daniel let out a shaky laugh. "Just a malfunction," he said. "That's all. Stress. Lack of sleep." He nodded to himself. "Yes, that's it." He turned to leave. Then, a sound. From inside the elevator. A faint whisper. "Help." Daniel froze. Slowly. Very slowly. He turned his head. The elevator was empty. But the panel still displayed. B7. And the doors were beginning to close. On their own. Before they fully shut, Daniel saw something move inside. Something tall, standing in the back corner. Watching him. Smiling. Ding. The doors closed. The number changed. Going down. Again. Daniel stood frozen in the lobby, his mind struggling to catch up with what he had just experienced. Then, behind him, the security monitors flickered. One screen changed. Camera. Basement level. Label. B7. The feed came to life. Grainy. Distorted. But visible. Daniel stepped closer, and what he saw made his stomach drop. The elevator doors opened on the screen. From inside, something stepped out. Not crawling this time. Standing upright. Too tall. Too thin. Its head tilted again, as if it were listening. Then, it looked directly into the camera, and smiled wider than any human should. The screen cut to black. Daniel backed away slowly. No. 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 Then, every monitor in the room turned on at once. All showing the same thing. Different floors. Different hallways. Different angles. But in every single one, the same figure. Standing. Watching. Waiting. And then, all at once, they began to move. Daniel didn't wait to understand. He ran. His shoes pounded against the marble floor as he sprinted toward the exit, his breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. Behind him, the security monitors crackled with static, and something else. Movement. Fast. Too fast. The glass doors ahead reflected his terrified face, and something behind him. He didn't look back. He shoved the doors open and stumbled out into the cold pre-dawn air. For a moment, everything felt normal again. Cars passed in the distance. A streetlight flickered. Somewhere, a dog barked. Reality. Daniel bent over, hands on his knees, trying to steady his breathing. It's over. It's over. But deep down, he knew better. He straightened slowly. Something felt off. The street was too empty. Too quiet, even for 4:20 a.m. Daniel turned around. The building stood behind him. Tall, dark, silent. But something had changed. The lobby lights were off. All of them. Just moments ago, they had been bright. Now, darkness filled the windows like black water. Daniel frowned. That's not possible. Then, a figure appeared in the lobby, standing just behind the glass doors. Tall, thin, perfectly still. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. No. The figure tilted its head. The same unnatural angle. Then, it stepped forward. The glass doors slid open on their own. Daniel stumbled backward. You stay away from me. The thing didn't rush. Didn't chase. It just walked. Slow. Deliberate. As if it already knew he couldn't escape. Daniel turned and ran again. Down the sidewalk. Past closed shops and dark windows. His footsteps echoed too loudly in the empty street. He glanced back. And nearly tripped. The figure wasn't far behind anymore. It hadn't run. But somehow, it was closer. Much closer. How are you? He didn't finish. He ran faster. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. But the distance between them kept shrinking. Then, the streetlights flickered. One by one. Pop, pop, pop. Each light went out as he passed beneath it. Darkness swallowing the road behind him. And within that darkness, movement. More than one. Daniel slowed, panic rising. No, no, there's more. He looked ahead. The next streetlight flickered, and under it, another figure, standing in the middle of the road. Waiting. Daniel stopped dead in his tracks. Behind him, ahead of him, they were surrounding him. The first creature tilted its head again. Then, they all did, in perfect sync. Daniel backed away slowly. Okay. Think. His eyes darted around. An alley to his left. Narrow. Dark. But open. Better than being trapped. He bolted toward it. The moment he entered the alley, the temperature dropped. Cold air wrapped around him like ice. The walls felt too close. Too long. Too endless. His footsteps echoed. But not just his. There were others now, matching his pace. Left. Right. Behind. Daniel ran faster. I'm not dying here. I'm not dying here. The alley stretched on, far longer than it should have. And at the end, there was a door, old, metal, slightly open. Light flickered inside. Daniel didn't hesitate. He rushed forward and shoved it open. And froze. It was the lobby. The same lobby. The same building. The same empty security desk. No, that's not possible. He turned around. The alley was gone. Just a blank wall. Daniel's chest tightened. I didn't leave. I never left. A soft ding echoed behind him. Slowly, he turned. The elevator doors were open. Waiting. The panel glowed, not with floor numbers, but with a single message. B7. No. The whisper came again. Closer this time. Help. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I tried to help you. Silence. Then, a new voice. Not weak, not broken, but deep, layered, like many voices speaking at once. You came back. Daniel's blood ran cold. I didn't. This isn't. You opened the door. The lights flickered. The elevator. Interior darkened. Shapes moved inside. Not one. Not two. Many. You saw. Daniel shook his head. I didn't mean to. You are marked. The words hit him like a physical force. The floor beneath him vibrated. The walls groaned softly. Daniel stumbled back. What do you want from me? Silence. Then, a single answer. Come down. The elevator doors widened slightly, as if inviting him in. No. Daniel stepped back. I'm not going back in there. The lights flickered again. Harder this time. The security monitors behind the desk turned on. Every screen showed him, standing there. But, not exactly. In the screens, he wasn't alone. Something stood behind him, breathing, watching, waiting. Daniel slowly turned his head. Nothing. He looked back at the monitors. Still there. Closer now. Right behind him. Don't turn around, the voice whispered. Daniel froze. Why? Because it's already closer than you think. A cold breath touched the back of his neck. Daniel's entire body went rigid. Tears streamed down his face. Please. The elevator dinged again. Louder. More aggressive. Come down. The doors began to close. Then stopped. As if waiting for him to decide. The whisper returned. Soft. Right beside his ear. Or we come up. Daniel's eyes widened. The monitors flickered violently. And then, every screen changed. Now showing different apartments. Different floors. People sleeping. Unaware. And in each room, dark shapes stood in the corners. Watching. Waiting. Daniel shook his head. No, you can't. We can. The voice was calm, certain. You opened the door. The elevator lights pulsed, like a heartbeat. Choose. Daniel looked at the screens. At the people, at the shadows creeping closer to them. Then, he looked at the elevator. At the darkness inside, at the thing waiting for him. His hands trembled, his breath shook. This isn't fair. Choice rarely is. The doors began to close again. Slowly. This time for real. Daniel made his decision. Stop. The doors froze. Daniel took a step forward. Then another. Tears in his eyes. If I come, you leave them alone. Silence. Then, yes. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. He stepped into the elevator. The air inside was freezing. The shapes shifted around him. Just out of sight, the doors began to close. Before they fully shut, Daniel glanced back one last time. The monitors had gone dark. The lobby was empty again. Normal. Safe. For now. The doors sealed with a heavy thud. The panel lit up. Descending. B1. B2. B3. Daniel closed his eyes. Please, let this end. But deep down, he knew. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The descent felt slower this time. Not like before, when the elevator dropped too fast, like it was escaping something above. Now it moved with purpose. Controlled. Deliberate. As if something below was waiting, and it didn't want to be kept waiting any longer. Daniel stood in the center of the elevator, too afraid to touch the walls. The air had turned ice cold, each breath sharp in his lungs. The faint reflection in the metal doors showed him, and something else. Not clearly, but enough. Shapes shifting behind him. Too many. He shut his eyes. I made the deal, he whispered. You said you'd leave them alone. No answer. Only the low hum of the elevator. Then, a new sound. A soft tapping from the walls. Daniel opened his eyes. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from all sides. Like fingers. Dozens of them, pressing from inside the walls. Trying to get out. Stop. Daniel said weakly. The tapping grew louder, faster, more desperate. Then, a voice. Not the deep one. Not the whisper. Something else. A woman's voice. Faint. Cracked. Don't go down. Daniel's heart skipped. Who are you? They lied. The walls shuddered. The tapping turned into scratching. They don't let anyone leave. Daniel's breath caught. What do you mean? A sudden bang shook the elevator. Hard. Daniel staggered. The lights flickered violently, and for a split second, he saw them clearly. Inside the walls. Faces. Dozens of faces. Pressed against the metal. Eyes wide. Mouths open. Screaming silently. Then the lights snapped back. Gone. Daniel backed into the corner. No. 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 The woman's voice returned. They promised me to. His stomach dropped. You're stuck here. Yes. A pause. Then, so will you be. The elevator jerked. Hard. Then stopped. The panel lit up. B7. Silence. Daniel stared at the doors. They didn't open. Not immediately. Instead, the lights went out. Total darkness. Daniel's breathing filled the space. Fast. Panicked. I changed my mind, he whispered. I don't want this. Take me back. A low chuckle echoed around him. The deep voice. You already arrived. The doors slid open. Slowly. This time, there was no darkness. There was something worse. A place. A real place. Daniel stepped out slowly. His legs felt weak. Unstable. The ground beneath him was cold concrete. But it wasn't a parking level. It was endless. A vast underground space stretching farther than the eye could see. Dim lights flickered overhead, but they didn't illuminate everything. Only parts. Enough to see. Rows of elevator doors. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. All identical. All slightly open. And from each one, darkness spilled out. Daniel turned slowly. This isn't possible. Footsteps echoed. Not his. Someone else was there. Standing ahead. A figure. Human. Daniel's heart jumped. Hey, are you? The figure stepped into the light. A man. Pale. Thin. Eyes hollow. But human. Still human. You're new, the man said flatly. Daniel nodded quickly. Yes. I just got here. Listen, they said if I came down. The man laughed. A dry, broken sound. They all say that. Daniel's hope cracked. What? Is this place? The man looked around slowly. As far as I can tell. A pause. A collection point. Daniel frowned. For what? The man met his eyes. For us. A cold chill ran through Daniel. No, that's not. A sudden scream echoed across the space. Far away. Then another. From a different direction. Then, many. Daniel turned in panic. What is that? The man didn't react. They're waking up. Daniel's chest tightened. Who? The man pointed toward the darkness beyond the rows of doors. Daniel followed his gaze. At first, nothing. Then, movement. Tall shapes emerging. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. All wrong. All bending and shifting unnaturally. Coming closer. Daniel stumbled back. No. I stayed. I did what they said. They don't care, the man replied. They just needed you to open the door. Daniel froze. What? The man's hollow eyes locked onto his. You didn't think it was random, did you? The realization hit like a hammer. The elevator. Needed someone to bring it up, the man finished. Daniel's breathing became erratic. No. I didn't mean to. None of us did. The creatures were closer now. Their movements jerky, unnatural. Their heads tilting in perfect synchronization. Watching, choosing. Daniel shook his head violently. There has to be a way out. The man was silent for a moment. Then, there is. Daniel grabbed his arm. Where? The man slowly raised a finger, pointing behind Daniel, to the elevator. Still open. Waiting. Daniel turned. Hope flared in his chest. I can go back. The man's expression didn't change. Yes. A pause. But not as you. Daniel's hope died. Instantly. What does that mean? The man didn't answer. Because he didn't need to. Daniel felt it. A cold presence behind him. Closer than before. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. He turned. Too late. One of the creatures stood inches away. Its face stretched into that impossible smile. Its eyes locked onto his. And in them, Daniel saw understanding, recognition, claim. The creature leaned closer, and whispered, "You opened the door." Daniel screamed. The world twisted. The lights exploded. Everything went black. At 4:18 a.m., the building lobby was quiet again. The security guard sat at his desk. As always, watching the monitors. Everything normal. Everything still. The elevator dinged. The doors opened, and Daniel stepped out, calm, still, smiling. A man walked into the lobby moments later. Yawning, tired, heading toward the elevator. Daniel watched him, head tilting slightly, smile widening. The man pressed the button. Long night, he muttered. Daniel nodded slowly. Very. The elevator opened. The man stepped inside. Daniel followed. The doors closed. The panel lit up. The man pressed his floor. But the elevator, it went down. The man frowned. Hey. This isn't. Daniel turned his head, just slightly. Too far. Too unnatural. And whispered, "Help." The lights flickered. The descent began. Again. And somewhere far below, more doors opened. Waiting.